we can get this meeting started. And if you'd like to speak on an item on or off the agenda, you could bring the slip up to this young lady on my left. She'd be happy to take it. If you have a cell phone, if you could put it in the silent mode, that would be helpful. With that, Lloyd, would you lead us in our pledge?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lloyd. With that, we have some people on the phone, so Chris, can you give me a roll call?
Commissioner Wolf. Present. Commissioner Rexstad.
Present.
Commissioner Hicks.
Here.
Commissioner Brzee.
Here on the phone.
Commissioner Beck. And Vice Chair Markarian. And Chair Algauer.
Here. Okay, now we have some housekeeping. We have some minutes from the July 7th, August 4th, and August 18th. Let's go back to, let's go back to July 7th. Do we see, we had 5, we still don't have enough for that one, do we?
No, so for all the minutes, we do have enough people to take action just as part of them. Whoever was absent for those respective minutes will have to recuse themselves, but there is at least 4 votes for each respective minute, so each one can be taken.
So,
On a motion? Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item 1.
July 7th?
Yeah, July 7th, 2021 meeting minutes.
Okay, we got a second on that, Richard? I'll second that. Okay, we got a motion and a second on those minutes, so all those in favor?
Chris will do a roll call.
We have to be roll call.
Correct.
Okay, roll call. Commissioner Wolf.
Yes.
Commissioner Rexstad.
I recuse.
Commissioner Hicks.
Yes.
Commissioner Brzee.
Yes.
Commissioner Beck. Vice Chair Markarian. And Chair Algauer.
Yes. Okay, so that puts July 7th to bed.
Then I'll make a motion on this one.
We're gonna do the 4th?
Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the August 4th meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve August's 4th. Just gonna get a roll call on that one, please.
Okay, roll call. Commissioner Wolf.
Yes.
Commissioner Rexstad.
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks.
Yes.
Commissioner Brzee. Commissioner Beck.
Recuse.
And Vice Chair Markarian. And Chair Algauer.
Here, approved. Okay, with that, we have a motion that carries, that takes care of August 4th. Now we go to August 18th.
Make a motion, we approve minutes of August 18th.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Okay, roll call. Commissioner Wolf.
I recuse myself.
Commissioner Rexstad.
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks.
Yes.
Commissioner Brzee.
He can't vote.
Yes.
Commissioner Beck.
Yes.
Vice Chair Markarian. And Chair Algauer.
Disease?
No,
Hicks.
Hicks was not here at the
No.
18th meeting, so he can't vote.
Okay, I won't put him down.
Okay, so we still had 4.
Yeah.
So we still have, the motion carries, approve that minutes.
Yeah, correct. So the approval will reflect Commissioner Hicks recusing because he was not at that meeting.
Okay, with that, I guess we can just move into our big agenda. And the first case we have is case number 20-0106, a CUP and architectural.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman Algauer. So the applicant, Randy Allen, has submitted case number 20-106, a conditional use permit and architectural review to construct a 7,200 square foot metal building for commercial use to support a fire sprinkler and HVAC installation contractors operation on a 2.23 acre property at 31535 Avenue E. So as I mentioned, the property is just over 2 acres. It's on the south side of Avenue E, north of Dunlap Boulevard and the 10 freeway, and west of 18th Street. The zoning of the site is community industrial IC zoning and is also located within the Dunlap corridor, which is our commercial/industrial corridor area and is kind of the only place we allow heavier industrial manufacturing operations. It's surrounded by multifamily and single-family uses to the north and west, and there's an architectural firm to the east of the site. Chick-fil-A, which is associated with the Yucaipa Point development that is currently underway, is just a little over 200 feet west of the site. So some background on kind of the applicant is National Services and Controls, short for NSC, specializes in commercial heating, air conditioning, HVAC, and fire safety systems and equipment. They offer installation, inspections, and maintenance of fire alarms, fire sprinklers, and fire pumps, and currently provide services in California, Utah, Nevada, and Arizona. They have an existing office on Avenue G, but NSC proposes to construct a new, larger warehouse and office space through this entitlement in order to support continued business growth and a need for a larger space. The hours of operation are proposed to be from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. The site plan is up on the screen right now. The project scope will include the demolition of an existing single-family residence on site, the construction of a new 7,200 square foot metal building, will include 21 parking spaces, which meets our code requirements, which are 1 per 250 for office space area and 1 per 1,000 for a warehouse use. There's a condition of approval included for frontage improvements that will include sidewalk adjacent to the site along both Avenue E as well as Dunlap Boulevard to be consistent with our general plan for providing connectivity. And as I mentioned, there is that Chick-fil-A, so it will help create a more walkable environment for residents. The Planning Commission may also consider recommending a formal replacement of the existing chain link fence to be added as a condition of approval. The applicant has expressed interest in replacing the existing chain link, just in order to kind of improve the site and provide some cohesiveness with adjoining property sites. That might be something to consider. The floor plan is up on the screen right now. As I indicated, there's warehouse and office space. The warehouse space comprises 5,300 square feet, and the office is 3,900. In terms of the architectural review, this is a metal structure and will be 22.5 feet at peak height. The southern elevation will have 2 14-foot by 18-foot roll-up doors, and the eastern elevation will have 1 14-foot by 18-foot roll-up door. And these garage doors will provide appropriate access for company trucks entering and exiting the building, coming out with different equipments and materials to provide on site at the prospective residences or commercial sites they may be providing services at. And then there's a colored rendering on the screen now. The building is proposed to be painted bronze to match adjoining developments and includes panel accents painted in a rust color. Window features will consist of a smaller square window on either side of a rectangular bronze metal pane for some additional accents, and that will be across the top portion of the north, south, and west building elevations. And additionally, the applicant has proposed 10-foot projecting canopy accents along all sides of the building to provide some more architectural detailing on the structure. And then in terms of landscaping, and meeting our general plan requirements. Currently, the site is not compliant with our general plan requirement for a minimum of 15% of the entire site to be landscaped. While only 8.1% of the entire project is landscaped, the project area, the current proposal represents 19% of the proposed developable area. However, it is recommended that additional landscaping is provided on the rear portion of the lot, given that this site is located within our freeway gateway visibility area. And then some more comments on landscaping are discussed on the screen above. There's conceptual landscaping provided at this time, which also will be required to go through the standard building and safety formal approval process. There's a detention basin at the western edge of the site. However, some items that the planning department would like to be further addressed in that process would be some gravel and broken concrete areas kind of near an existing metal building that's also on site that is proposed to be repainted to match the new structure. This will support the goals and policies of one of our general plan policies, CDL-10.4, which is for visually interesting and well-planned projects. Additionally, the rear 1 acre portion of the site is proposed to remain undeveloped. But given the high visibility from the 10 freeway and that it is located within this freeway gateway area, the planning department has added a condition of approval to provide landscaping up to the property line. And so some further details on the image zone. Within our City of Yucaipa design guidelines, the image zone is referenced as sites with high visibility, and aesthetics, material choices, and landscaping are items that are to be emphasized in properties that are within this image zone. Here's a photo of the site. That's the existing building that's to be repainted to match the bronze structures. And kind of here's a vantage point of the vacant portion of the site and the existing chain link fence that surrounds. Project notices were sent to surrounding property owners within a 300-foot radius of the site. No comments were received. And it's staff's recommendation that you approve items A through D. And I'm here to answer any questions as well as the applicant and the applicant's representative.
Okay, thank you, Madeline. Anyone have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, is the applicant here? Wish to make a? Yes. Okay, could you step forward? Give us your name and address for the records, please.
Name is Randy Allen. Address is 12630 12th Street here in Yucaipa. I am the contractor on the project. What else do you want to know?
So, yeah, so, sir, good evening,
Good evening.
first of all. It's a beautiful project, as far as it matching especially matching the neighboring businesses. Traditionally, at least in the time I've been on this commission, we have not allowed chain link fences. And I know that was something that was recommended in here, was a removal of the chain link fence or replacement of the chain link fence, but it doesn't say with what.
We're going to replace the chain link fence facing Avenue E with an existing wrought iron fence that is adjacent to the other two businesses that'll match theirs.
Okay, and what about what's parallel to the freeway?
Repair the freeway.
Parallel, is there gonna be any
That
fencing?
is going to be, the property is supposed to be subdivided somewhere down the next 3 to 5 years, be subdivided. We have not done anything about that. Wasn't planning on doing anything with it since it's going to be subdivided at some point in time.
Okay, and what type of fencing is there now?
It's chain link fence, I believe.
Okay, so traditionally, and my question to you then is, although you're gonna subdivide the property, we are dealing with, you're gonna put in, let me back up. The recommendation from the city is that we landscape all the way to the property line, even though you're gonna subdivide that in 3 to 5 years. So that's the recommendation, to my understanding, that the city is saying, landscape all the way to the property line, which would then mean you should also put a wrought iron fence at that property line, because this is about aesthetically what it looks like when people are driving by on the freeway or on the road of their image of Yucaipa. So what I'm asking you is, if we condition that, if we say it has to be a wrought iron fence and you're gonna replace the chain link fence with wrought iron fence all the way around, and you have to do landscaping according to the city standards, you have to do landscaping all the way down to the property line. Well, there was a third, right? There was two?
Right, because that is part of our corridor, and with the activity in the area, there is a lot of traffic. So I think what we're alluding to is, we definitely, I mean, somebody can say 3 to 5 years, it could be 10 years, so we want to see the wrought iron all the way around in the rear end of that property landscaped, so it's visible from the freeway.
As a point of clarification, just making sure that when we have discussions that we're speaking into the microphone for the benefit of the public hearing, no tentative parcel map has been submitted, and so the applicant alludes to a subdivision happening in the future, but none of that formal action has occurred today. And so the conditions and recommendations are reflective of the project in front of us today.
Okay, so there was a third recommendation by the city. It was, you guys talked about, it was the very last, like, if you go back a couple slides, it was more like the bar, the graph. Keep going, keep going, keep going. No, go forward. That one right there.
Oh, yeah, that just similarly, they both have to do with landscaping, but it's kind of addressing the gravel and broken concrete areas near the front of the site, which can be better screened through greater landscaping in that area, and then additionally, better landscaping on the rear portion of that lot that's to be undeveloped or
Okay, so.
potentially subdivided at a later date.
So my understanding then is, there's 3 things that the city is asking you to do for us to approve this project. Is, number 1, you landscape all the way to the property line down below. Number 2, you put a wrought iron fence around the entirety of the property, not just the sides of the property or the front of the property. And number 3 is you address the broken gravel issue with landscaping at the front of the property. So having you up here, one of the reasons we ask the applicants to come up is to find out if that's something that you are amenable to do.
The third item, which is the broken concrete and gravel, we will be taken care of. If you want to require me to put a wrought iron fence around my property, would you require the other people that adjacent to my property to do the same, since they have chain link fence? And that's what you're concerned with, is the appearance from the freeway. Now, I don't mind doing that as long as it's an equal playing field all the way down. You know, we're trying to make this as a project that will fit into the neighborhood and to the area and to the business area for which it is. So that's number 2. Number 3, landscaping. We had not thought about landscaping all the way down to that property, because that's a very expensive process in doing that. Then it requires irrigation and everything else that goes in there. In the past years, there's never been anything landscaped in there. So we could work with it on that. But again, wrought iron fence down there, you're talking about a heck of a lot of money, and you're not asking anybody else to match my stuff.
But then again, too, you're very visible in that corner from the freeway, and for everyone else, you're quite visible. So, I mean, this is how we get things done in the city, by getting it done. I mean, if your neighbor, somebody comes in front of us and they're gonna do a project or they're gonna improve their property, that's when we hit them with the same terms that we're asking for you. We're trying to improve this area. You know, it's a very heavily traveled area, okay?
I understand that, and I agree with you. It is a heavily traveled. This is the young lady that I work with a lot on architectural designs. So,
I'd like to address a little bit the issues that we're talking about as far as the improvements on the Dunlap side. One of the things that we wanted to address is, one, the requirement for the sidewalk on Dunlap. We wanted to contest since there will be no access, there's no access for sidewalk on either side, and it's not a heavily pedestrian walking area, and will not be currently in the future, where there's no public transportation available in that section of town. As far as the landscaping goes, I did speak with the Director of Engineering about the landscaping for that section, and while we were not informed that we would need to landscape to the property line, which would be relatively expensive, the idea would be to give it a natural look of some kind, so whether they do irrigation, and the idea was to be able to do, so we didn't have runoff. So, you know, whether it's wildflowers or something like that, but to keep it a natural scape, something that is still beautifies the back side of it. But as Randy brought out, obviously we know DKC and Golden Slate and Cal Mesa, that is all visible from that side, weren't asked to make some of those improvements. So we want to keep it, again, the idea is that the property owner does want to eventually improve that section of the property, whether he does that himself or he subdivides it and sells that piece, then those improvements would be put upon that application for the future. But I think if we are going to be asked to do the landscaping for that front portion, for that portion to Dunlap, that there become an agreement, because then we're asking for way above the 15% requirement. If they want us to just do the 15% of the entire property, then we would have to come up with where that is, because we shouldn't be asked to go over and above that. But I think if we work with them to come up with a plan on the landscaping of what can be a natural scape that would still enhance the area without making it as expensive as some landscaping requirements might make it.
So what you're saying is you don't want to do the landscaping, the wrought iron, or?
I think the wrought
Or the
iron
sidewalk.
is not being contested if it needs to be done in order to be able to, if we need to get rid of the chain link just to make that side more appealing, then that's something the owner would be willing to do.
And the sidewalks, curbs and gutters,
The curb and gutter already exists.
right, and the sidewalks,
Not on that side, since it's not improved, there's no access to the building from that side, and neither adjacent property has sidewalks. And there are buildings on the, what would that be, the east side is fully developed with no sidewalk.
well, I can see the sidewalks on the east side,
Yes,
but actually on Avenue east side,
yes, of course, those would have to be done, yes, because that's got to be pedestrian friendly, as they brought out, to basically get to the, for the street improvements overall of Avenue E.
I know that there's additional costs, and right now, costs are skyrocketing.
And the drought.
As far as landscaping and everything. I do think from the standpoint of consistency with the way the commission has approached these issues, I would lean toward wanting more landscaping, and I think it would enhance the appearance of your business to do that. Which I know that's what you want, is a good appearance for your business. And the visibility of that property is going to be pretty amazing. So it's important. I think it would be really beneficial to have a serious discussion about increasing that landscaping.
So would we be asked for more than the 15% of what is required for all properties?
Well, it says that they're requiring, typically require a minimum of 15%. I see a lot of applications where they didn't even discuss it because it'll show up on the board that landscaping is 20% or whatever, and we don't even discuss the issue. So I think, and I understand in your situation, because of the cost factor, you're looking at that 15% figure, but I don't think we can compare with other applications. Will they be required or any of that stuff? We're talking about this application here, and that goes with, for the wrought iron fence too. I mean, you understand, we can't, in retroactive compliance, we can't go back and ask the neighbors to put, wrought iron fence on their property if they've owned it forever and a day. This is because of the application that this is the time to make these improvements, and that's just the way the process works, I guess.
If I may, I add in as well for the commission's consideration. So the recommendation, at least for the fencing, is certainly to have a more decorative fence relative to the standard galvanized chain link. And so other properties that have been recently developed have the tubular steel or wrought iron type fencing. And so that's been part of it. And then as well as landscaping, the other adjoining properties, the commercial sites, so DKC Architects do have landscaping to property line, and those projects also did exceed the minimum 15% landscaping as part of there. Certainly, staff is willing to work with the applicant on the landscape design through the hill area in terms of that access space to make sure it's not a significant maintenance cost element, and then just making sure as part of the visibility and the view corridor that Maddie had identified as making sure that at least the project site looks finished given how visible it is at the gateway to the city.
And I'm sorry to jump in on the phone, but can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah,
Yeah, you can ask a question.
yeah.
Okay. On the proposed future lot line that'll be between the two properties, is there a wrought iron fence currently proposed for that? Or are you proposing to leave that as chain link right now?
You're talking about on Avenue E?
There is no fence currently.
Well, okay. So my suggestion would be, at some point you're going to have to fence that. So as part of this project, where you have your proposed future lot line, why don't you do the fence along there? And then there is no current fence, I don't believe, down on Dunlap Boulevard, is there?
So if I may clarify, the site plan indicates that is proposed to happen at a later date, but there is no formal submittal of a tentative parcel map in our queue in the planning department.
No,
And so in
yeah, I
order to
understand.
defer those kind of improvements off, there would have to be a formal submittal of a parcel map, and we would need to have that in progress and approved in order to kind of defer some of those things on.
Right. No, I understand that, but I'm saying the existing chain link fence that's there is what I see on the plan here, where it shows the chain link fence is where the future lot line is. Is that correct? Does that fence exist now or not?
There isn't a fence at the middle of the property. There is a chain link fence
Okay.
on the southern edge.
There's no
Right.
fence in the middle. It's on the
So,
property.
I'm assuming that any future developments, going to access off Dunlop Boulevard. But, we all know that those things could be, a year off, 5 years off, 10 years off. But my suggestion would be put that wrought iron fence where the proposed property line is. And that has the elevation that you see it off the freeway. And then maybe that lower section just, maintain that more naturally. But you could get the additional 15% or additional landscaping along that proposed property line, which would be mostly what you see, and meet the minimum requirement.
I would like to point out that this property, the right-of-way is actually part of Caltrans right-of-way. So because we have not had the subdivision submitted, we have not done any sort of review process, there is the possibility, because it is very common in properties that are adjacent to Caltrans right-of-way, that there could be access restrictions. So I'm not saying that there is an access restriction, but without going through the review process for a subdivision, we cannot guarantee that there's access allowed off of Dunlap Boulevard.
Right. So that would be back to my point is, without a map that's recorded, there's no way of knowing. Caltrans may come up with an idea that they're going to widen the off-ramp going off and not want to have that developed. You never know with Caltrans, and you never know with what the timing might be on that. So, I think you just made my point for me that may not be developed or subdivided in the near future, or it may. But if you bring access off of Avenue E, then that creates a whole another issue. you know, you have some elevation changes there that are hard to deal with too. So, but it does have a lot of visibility off the road. And so I can see everybody's concern about trying to get that done now, because I don't think you can count on future to make at least minimum improvements to it, if you're going to try to get rid of chain link fences.
But if we eliminate, I mean, the sidewalks, to me, is a give. I mean, if we did some kind of planting or trees or something in lieu of a sidewalk, would that be infringing on Caltrans?
It would be not infringing on Caltrans, so it's sort of interesting. The right-of-way there is both city and Caltrans right-of-way, but it is adjacent to the freeway. One thing I do want to point out is that the sidewalk is a standard. That's a standard design for engineering. Now you have the ability to decide that it's not needed, but I want to point out that sidewalk will never be constructed on the south side of that street because it is adjacent to the freeway, and that is Caltrans right-of-way. And that other projects that have recently been constructed, which include the Sorensen project and the storage facility, those have both required and constructed sidewalks. So there is new sidewalk going along Dunlap Boulevard for projects that have been recently approved. And as Maddie mentioned in her report, this is also adjacent to the new Chick-fil-A, even though there is a single property between the two that doesn't have sidewalk now. If it were ever improved, it would be required to have sidewalk. So it's not an access issue, it's a pedestrian issue, and that's why that condition is there.
So are you telling us that where Sorensen's end up, you would be asking them to connect the sidewalks all the way around?
No, I'm saying that any project that's developed along Dunlap Boulevard is required to construct sidewalks. So this would actually be unique in that we would not require them to develop sidewalk along Dunlap Boulevard.
My question is, can we approve this or not approve this based on us not having the Caltrans issue dealt with?
Yes, so all of the proposed improvements are within private development, so that's not an issue with Caltrans. The sidewalk is in city right-of-way. What I was talking about earlier is the access restriction, where, for example, we have an access restriction over by the Live Oak interchange, where when that was developed, we realized that you had to move the driveway approach because there was this restriction from Caltrans. Now, I don't know if there is an access restriction on this property, but with the proximity to Caltrans right-of-way, it is a possibility.
So should we not be doing this right now?
We can approve this project. The issue is if they decide to subdivide it, because I think that's what's coming up. If we are treating this as though it's potentially subdivided, we may find out that if it's subdivided and there's a southern parcel, that may not be accessible.
Oh,
It would
so-
be technically a landlocked parcel.
So where he wants to put the building, it's okay?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, if
So
any,
I didn't get it.
I'm sorry, we're approving it as it stands today without consideration for a subdivision on the property. So, you know, again, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next year. But for today, we are only approving this as it stands, as a single parcel. And it's up to us whether we're giving consideration that they might subdivide it sometime in the future and not require them to do certain improvements that they would normally have to do, and I'm not sure we can do that.
Well, I think the question for the applicant is, you are willing to put the wrought iron fence around the southern portion. Are you willing to do the landscaping, yes or no?
Yes, I don't have a problem with the landscaping, as long as we can somewhere meet a happy medium in there. I can't
Okay.
throw $50,000-$60,000 of landscaping in
Mr.
that
Allen,
property.
can you make sure you're speaking into the microphone so it gets picked up?
Yeah, as long as we can meet a happy medium somewhere with the landscaping, I don't have a problem. But I can't throw $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 worth of landscaping in that, you know, and then say, well, I don't have the money for the rest of it or
Right.
stuff, because we've already committed. And as you know, the building material has gone through the roof over this thing. And so we're gonna connect to the sidewalk and everything that goes down and go all the way down to our property line. There is a veterinarian, it's on the corner of that, which has a wrought iron fence around his property and stuff. And we're trying to make our property
Right.
adjacent to everything else that's there and what the city wants in the future with it.
But as Commissioner stated, what was done 20 years ago is not necessarily what's going to be done
I
today.
understand that.
So we're trying to improve the look of
Correct.
things. And that's what this is ultimately about. And typically, when we're asking applicants to increase their budget like this, we do this with block walls all the time. When we're asking people to increase their budget, which we know it's going to cost you a lot more money, we want to know how viable that is for you to be able to do. So there was the three things, and the city is saying that you guys are acceptable to that? Like, is that something we can do? Or do we need to put a number on it, like a percentage on that landscaping? Because we don't know if he's really gonna follow through with it, or if he's just saying this because he wants to get the
Well,
project approved.
I've got to follow through if I get approved, because I don't get an occupancy permit because the landscaping's not there.
If I may.
Do whatever's got to be required on that.
If I may provide a suggestion for council, or for the commission, is that a condition be added that does give some flexibility for the applicant to work with city staff on kind of the landscape design along the hill, and maybe have a more minimalistic but still attractive appearance. Certainly, I think the intention or goal overall is to have something attractive, and so certainly we're happy to work with the applicant's landscape architect and our contract landscape architect to find a solution that is kind of the happy medium. But what we are, as part of the recommendation that we have, is to make sure it just doesn't look unfinished, or that it was a forgotten part and then we're waiting 20, 30 years hoping something else gets developed on that site to finish it.
Yeah, I've
Thanks,
always
Ben.
been applicable about letting the staff take on this. And at this point, I think staff understands where we're at and what we can't anticipate what's coming down the road. So we do need to have staff look at this, make sure that we're covered.
Okay, what about the sidewalks? So she objected to the sidewalk. So they're for the landscaping, they're for the fence, they've said that they'll take care of the gravel, and we can make all of those a part of their approval, but now we're dealing with the sidewalk, which she said that they oppose.
I understand too your consideration about the sidewalk. I lived in Yucaipa long enough to know that back when we moved here, it was like a patchwork. There was this, nothing, there was no uniformity, any place. No place. And so in the process of trying to uniformly develop the city, I know that there will be times when it seems like a component of the development is totally irrelevant. It doesn't make any sense. Except in the grand scheme of things, when the city is done with the development and it's looked at from the standpoint of uniformity, that's an important consideration. And you can, I don't know if you're from our town of Yucaipa, but I could take you on any number of streets where the streets are like this, and then they come in like this, and then they're back out and in. And it's been that way for 40 years, I know. And so when we have a chance to make it more uniform, we're naturally very hesitant to not require that. And I know I really hear your pain of cost.
And I think that the owner, I'm sorry to jump in just because I think that the owner would be willing to put the sidewalk in if the landscaping was pointedly kept to a minimum so that it was more of a natural scape. And again, he's willing to put something back there. And again, we're willing to work with staff, but the idea, and I think the wording should be that it is a natural slope and should have natural.
How do you find natural? How do you define? I agree with you. And how do you define that?
I would say something in the realm of drought tolerant or wildflower, something that
Or
helps
rock.
with the runoff. Some rock. I'm sure we could put gravel back there. Again, we're willing to work with staff. I just want to ensure that we're not looking at putting a a park
So
back there.
you,
Yeah.
Not a golf
are you
course.
looking at like desert scene type? Like
I
a-
am not the landscape architect, and we have not gotten into what the
Okay,
all of that will be. Obviously, the Avenue East side is what we're trying to improve the most, obviously, for the eye, because we do have Yucaipa Point and Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out and everything. And so that's where the majority of that money goes into. It would be sad to end up making that very minimalist so that we can landscape the rear.
Yeah.
That at some point, hopefully it's developed. If it's not, even more so to Katrina's point, is that if we can't get a access on that, then it'll never be developed. It should be then more natural scape so that it can be long-term for drought conditions here in Haipa.
I think as Ben mentioned earlier that as city staff, we're in support of that, and that's why I did mention the gravel and broken concrete areas kind of towards the front of the property. And there's additionally a concrete berm kind of at the rear portion of the developable area right now. So maybe some sort of more dense, intensive landscaping in the developable area, and then this natural tendency at the rear of the slope is definitely something that I see being supported. Kind of establishing maybe that 15% and then having natural aesthetic appeal at the rear portion of the lot to kind of better improve that image zone area that I did reference. And Ben, if you're in agreement or can provide any clarity.
Yeah, I think
you haven't weighed in. Have you got some comments you want to throw in here?
And the two property line, I think, from the condition, at least when I was helping prepare it, wasn't necessarily expecting a forest, as you mentioned, by any means. It was, being aware of those drought-tolerant plants and something that would just create a nice, appealing scape for visibility from the freeway and other corridors. So.
I'd be okay with staff working on that. Richard, do
Yeah.
you?
No, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with saying what you have to put back there or
Right.
not put back there for either party. At the end of the day, the city wants you to have this project. Let's be very real. It's gonna make the area look a lot nicer.
yeah.
So we want you to have the project. And the city wants it, city employees, staff, and they're gonna do everything they can to work with you to ensure that this happens.
Thank
So
you.
I think go ahead.
Is it appropriate to then just say that when the recommendation is made ultimately, that there be a condition that the applicant will work with the city staff to come up with an agreeable solution to the landscaping issue? And Ben, you've been around long enough to and you've heard the discussion, the intensity of it. You know that at the next meeting, you're gonna have to face these Hvacs up here, and you don't wanna have to say, oh, well, we gave them 5%, as opposed to 16 or 17% or something, like that. We trust your judgment.
no, we are certainly happy to work with them. The condition could be worded that the applicant works with city staff and their landscape architect works with city staff to develop, landscaping to the property line that, provides, an attractive appearance without being too overdone, I guess.
An acceptable standard.
Cost.
We'll work with the city staff, and I've already hired a landscape architect to put the things in the process of what the city wants.
Yeah.
So we're not bucking the city and anything, we're just trying to reach a happy medium for what you want and what we can afford and what the project looks like, because the project is gonna be an extremely beautiful project.
So, sir, it sounds like we're going to make a motion at some point probably to approve this with the conditions, in addition to what is already being recommended by the city, that's it on agenda item 4, but with the recommendations that you do the sidewalk, you clean up the gravel in the front, you put the chain link, or you remove the chain link fence and put the wrought iron around the property, the entirety of the property, and you landscape to the curb, or to the property line. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Those are
and
gonna
that
be the added conditions. The wording on them can be whatever it is, but those are the 4 added conditions.
So the sidewalk is already the condition, and then there is, I believe, the condition already regarding the landscape. So the landscape condition could just be augmented to reflect that they will work with, the city staff and the applicant will work to kind of create the design. I can think of, certainly with a hill, there's a lot of opportunity for, a easy but attractive appearance for landscape design, so it's not necessarily rocket science, I think, to get something that would be attractive. But certainly we can expand upon those details and then adding the condition related to the replacement of the chain link fence in lieu of a more decorative, tubular steel wrought iron fence as well.
Okay.
Okay, with that, do we have any public comments?
No public comments received on this project.
Okay, so I'll leave it up. With that, we'll close the public portion of this hearing and let's move to the commissioners for a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve. Ben, you're gonna have to repeat yourself. That we approve case number 20-106, the conditional use permit and architectural review, along with items A through D, in addition to adding the conditions of replacing the chain link fence with wrought iron fence around the entirety of the property, so to include the south property line along Dunlap, for the landscaping to work with the city, correct? To work with the city and making that determination of what the landscaping is gonna look like, something that's not cost prohibitive or, that you and the city can agree on. What was the other one?
So the sidewalk is already conditioned, and then the landscape, condition number 86 identifies landscaping shall be installed and completed to property line, so it'd be amending condition number 86 to the applicant and city staff shall work to develop landscaping.
Okay, we're
And
doing
be
that.
installed and completed to property line.
I recommend that.
All right.
And then the gravel, do we need to talk about the gravel at the front?
That can be included in the amended condition.
Yeah.
And he
so
said
that-
he's gonna do it, so,
so we can add that or clarify that as part of condition
So-
number 86 as well.
okay, why don't you wanna clarify it? Does that make it easier?
Yeah.
And clarify that number 8, or 80, whatever condition it was.
86, yeah.
86, that he cleans up the gravel, removes the gravel and landscapes that area. And are we missing anything? The
That covers
sidewalk's
it.
already in there, the fence, the landscaping.
That's it.
I think we got it all. So we got a motion. I got a second.
Second.
Lloyd got a second. With that, Chris, could you give me a roll call?
Commissioner Wolf,
Yes.
Commissioner Reckstad,
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks, Commissioner Hicks, are you there?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Brzee,
Yes.
Commissioner Beck,
Yes.
Vice Chair Markarian, and Chair Algauer.
Yes. Motion carries. We got a project.
Thank you.
Thank you for hanging in there with it. We really appreciate it. Okay, with that, we'll move into item number 21-089, special use permit and architectural review.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Today, the applicant, John Reed, brings before you case number 21-089, a special use permit and architectural review for an unpermitted 1,000 square foot and 12-foot tall metal garage located on a single-family residential property at 12998 Columbia Avenue. So the site location is a 1.31 acre parcel located at the end of Columbia Avenue. It is in the RS20M district. It's the single residential 20,000 square foot minimum lot size. It's bordered by other RS20M to the north, west, and east, with an institutional district to the south. And the garage will act as a workshop and to store the applicant's personal belongings. This is the site plan. It's a little bit tough to see here, but the existing property is improved by a 2,607 square foot single-family residence with an unpermitted 720 square foot metal garage with an attached 280 square foot metal awning for that 1,000 square feet. The structure fits within all RS 20M zoning setbacks and is approximately 350 feet from the road. These are the elevations. It's approximately 12 feet at peak height. And as you can tell, it's a little bit, it's an older building, so they're gonna paint the roof and the siding to match the house. And there's a man door on the front west side of the structure. Staff recommends that the applicant apply a decorative trim to provide a more finished architectural look to be in line with some other SUPs that have been approved. There's an example there as well. So this is a site photo. It's tucked way back there. Public notices were sent to the surrounding property owners and no responses were received. It is categorically exempt from CEQA. And it is staff's recommendation that you review the architectural design, adopt the special use permit findings, adopt a categorical exemption, and direct staff to file a notice of exemption.
Okay. With that, anybody have any questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you see this metal structure from anywhere behind the property?
No, I drove there and I couldn't see it, but it was a complaint. This is how it was brought to our attention. And it could potentially be seen from neighboring yards.
Okay, and the property behind this, is that gonna be developed?
I couldn't tell you that.
Property backs up to the flood channel there, and you can see the building from a distance off of Wildwood Canyon Road. I believe it's Wildwood Canyon there. This property, that building has been there since about 1978, 79, before Yucaipa became a city. And for whatever reason now they're, we got to permit it, and I'm working with the homeowner for doing that and getting it through.
Okay.
Okay. So we putting sidewalks in?
No.
Guess not.
It just, the property, the house sits on the hill and the property goes down, and then there's the flood channel on the back side there. And then there's nothing on the other side of that that I know other than bush and trees and stuff, and you can't see, like I say, mentioned, you can't see it from, I think it's Wildwood Canyon. It's on the back side of that.
Yeah.
For staff, how many complaints did we get?
I'm sorry?
It's for staff.
Oh, okay.
So there was a code enforcement complaint regarding this as a unpermitted metal structure, and so upon inspection and review by code enforcement was determined that that was a valid complaint, and so that is what brings the project here to us today.
Was there any complaints about the look?
I don't recall what the exact nature of the complaint was other than identifying that structure and not being permitted.
Well, I don't,
40 years.
yeah, I don't remember ever having said you have to put decorative trim on something. That's why I'm asking these questions. I understand the painting of it,
Yeah.
but as far as adding decorative trim, I don't remember us having done that, nor does it seem like that needs to.
We have done it when it's visible, but with this particular,
Because that's
I
not a
don't
part,
see as,
that's not a part of the conditional use, that's just something
No,
the
no, it's
city's
not.
amending, so.
right.
So if I may clarify, the recommendation or the thing identified is just the cap, or so to speak, from where the metal sheets are for the roof where it connects to the side of the building. And so typically with the newer metal garages that go through planning commission, those buildings already include those elements. And so that's a kind of a finishing touch element that's consistent with a lot of those SUPs. And so given kind of the nature is provided that as a consideration for the planning commission.
But would he have to, like, tear this down to be able to do that, or significantly cut into it?
It would be difficult to retrofit something like that. The client would be opposed to that kind of condition, one, because it's not visible, two, because, Ed, again, this is a 20, 30-year-old structure. He purchased this obviously at a much later time, and now he has the burden of going obviously through this whole process, and so he's willing to do the required improvements, but wouldn't want to be in favor of doing any additional course that would be a burden to the citizen.
And I know we've had, you know, lots of other metal structures and that have come to us and that were unpermitted. I mean, these didn't require a permit back when they were built.
Correct.
So, and new people buying property, and this has happened numerous times. I just don't recall us, if it's something that's we're permitting that was not permitted, I don't remember us requiring.
Well, if this was a code issue, it's probably non-permitted, am I correct?
That is correct. If there was a building permit record for this type of structure that existed, then the code enforcement complaint that was received would not have moved forward because it would have been determined that it was a legitimate and correctly permitted structure.
The property owner did go to the county of San Bernardino and also the city of San Bernardino to see if there was a permit pulled, and there was never any sign that the permit was pulled. So he purchased a property, like I say, 7 or 8 years ago, not knowing anything about it, and other just, it was there.
Well, and as Commissioner Wolf brought out, during when it was county, this wouldn't have been a structure that somebody had permitted.
That's right.
So that's kind of like a catch-22 situation that the person is now, the property owner is now in, obviously not knowing because this property has probably passed hands more than once after this. So he's just trying to get to conformance so that way we don't have a future issue.
We understand and we're okay with that.
And that's a prime example of what I was talking about, the lack of uniformity 30 years ago. And so my heart is with the owner today. I mean, this is,
Yeah, it's a burden.
yeah, it's a pain.
Okay? Thank you. Do we have any public comments on this, Ben?
No public comments on this item.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing portion of it, and we'll move back to my commissioners for a motion.
I think they should have to paint it, which is what this says they're gonna do. Paint the roof, paint the sides, paint the trim, make it look like it's newer.
More aesthetic,
but aesthetically, but I don't think we should make them put decorative trim on it.
Was that a staff requirement, the decorative
I'm good
trim?
with that. It's,
So the decorative trim element or kind of the finishing touch is as a special use permit is going through the process, if we remove the idea that it was constructed before but without permits and they're retroactively trying to permit it, that detail would have been essentially an automatic element for any of these SUPs that come through. And so that's kind of the purpose of the recommendation we have right now. That's just us identifying that may be an element for the Planning Commission to consider. If the Planning Commission does not want to do that, the project plans do reflect the repainting of the structure, and so then the commission can certainly approve the project as it is currently shown on the plans and with the new
Yeah, I would be more apt to do that. So,
Do the guys online have anything to say? On the phone?
Tony, you have you want to weigh in on that? He's busy getting another beer. Okay, so. Okay, with that, with what we have a motion.
I make a motion that we approve case number 21-089, special use permit architectural review.
I'll second that.
And we are going to eliminate the fact that we have to put up
No trim.
no trim, correct?
There's no condition for
Wasn't on there.
that, so
No
that was
condition,
a
all right.
recommendation.
Okay, good.
for- yeah.
All right, I'm okay with that. So with that, Chris, can we have a roll call?
Okay. Commissioner Wolf,
Yes.
Commissioner Reckstad,
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks, Commissioner Brizzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Beck,
Yes.
Vice Chair Markarian, Chair Algauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks, are you still there?
Okay, with that, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Ben, you got announcements, next meeting?
The next meeting will be on October 6th, so we do get a few weeks off. And then we'll have a number of items on that meeting. And then the only other announcement is the housing element draft will be going to HCD probably tomorrow. The Plan Commission did review it. They concurred with the Plan Commission's recommendations as well. And so Commissioner Rutstead, you had requested kind of that acronym list, and so that's been developed as well. But we're moving on to the next stage and looking forward to that state review process, and hopefully it's not too difficult, and we can bring it back to you guys for formal adoption and keep on plugging away. So, but that's all I got. And
Okay, we'd like to thank staff for hanging in there with us on these issues. Appreciate the cooperation. It worked good. Thank you very much.
For the record, 7:33.
Who had 7:33?